The message arrived at exactly midnight ship time. Admiral Park was standing on the bridge of the diplomatic vessel Horizon's Edge when the communication officer turned to him with a pale face. "Sir, we have received a transmission from the Galactic Council." Did not move. He had been expecting this for months. Humanity had grown too fast, spread too far, and built too much. The old powers of the galaxy had noticed. They were not happy. He walked slowly to the communication station and read the message on the screen. The words were formal and cold. The Galactic Council, rulers of the Orion Arm for 17,000 years, demanded that humanity send representatives to their station. They wanted to discuss what they called territorial concerns. Commander stepped up beside him. She was a tall woman with sharp eyes and a mind that worked faster than most computers. She read the message twice before speaking. "They are not inviting us," she said quietly. "They are commanding us." Nodded. He had served in the human fleet for 30 years. He had seen pirates, rebels, and hostile alien species, but he had never faced anything like the Galactic Council. They were ancient, they were powerful, and they believed they owned the stars. "Contact Earth," he said. "Tell them the Council has made its move." The journey to the Nexus system took 3 weeks. During that time, Ambassador Minu boarded the Horizon's Edge with his diplomatic team. Minu was a man of 50 years, with gray hair and calm eyes. He had spent his entire career talking to aliens. He understood their languages, their cultures, and their fears, but he had never appeared before the Council itself. With him came Doctor, who studied how aliens communicated. She was young, barely 30, but she had already written several important books about alien psychology. She knew that words were weapons, and she knew how the Council liked to use them. On the first night of the journey, the senior staff gathered in the conference room. Maps of the galaxy covered the walls. 3 star systems were marked in red. These were the worlds that humanity had colonized over the past 50 years. The Council claimed these worlds belonged to someone else. "The Dominion says we took their planets," Minu explained. "They filed a complaint with the Council 2 years ago. The Council has finally decided to act." Frowned. They had 6,000 years to colonize those systems. They never touched them. The planets were dead rocks when we arrived. "That does not matter to the Council," said. She pulled up images of the 12 species that ruled the galactic government. They were strange and terrifying. Some looked like insects. Others were made of crystal or shadow. There were reptiles with scaled skin and cold eyes. The Council uses something called reservation law. Any species can claim systems for future use. Other species must respect those claims. "Even if they never use them?" asked. "Even then, the law protects the old and powerful. It punishes the young and ambitious." Paused. "Species like us." Studied the images of the. "What happens to species that refuse to follow their rulings?" The room went quiet. Everyone knew the answer, but no one wanted to say it. Finally, Minu spoke. "In 17,000 years, no species has ever refused. Those who came close were destroyed. The Council has fleets that dwarf anything we can build. They have weapons we do not understand. They have allies everywhere. So we are expected to give up our worlds," said. 30 million humans live on those planets. We built cities there. We made the air breathable. We turned death into life." "The Council does not care what we built," said softly. "They only care that we understand our place." The Horizon's Edge dropped out of faster-than-light travel 3 days later. The Nexus system spread before them like a painting of impossible beauty. A dying red star hung at the center, surrounded by rings of debris that glowed with ancient light. And there, orbiting the star, was the Council station. It was enormous. The station was larger than some moons, built from materials that human science could not identify. Lights glowed across its surface in patterns that seemed almost alive. Ships surrounded it by the thousands. Every species in the galaxy had sent observers to watch what would happen next. stood beside on the bridge. They are all watching us. Good, replied, let them watch. The Horizon's edge was guided to a docking port by automated systems. The humans were not trusted to fly their own ship this close to the station. As they approached, studied the other vessels nearby. I count ships from at least 200 species, she said. Some of them traveled months to be here. Word has spread. Everyone wants to see what the council will do to the newcomers. Minyu straightened his formal uniform. It was black with silver trim, the colors of Earth's diplomatic corps. They want to see us humiliated. They want to watch us kneel. Will we? Asked. Minyu did not answer immediately. He looked out the viewport at the massive station, at the thousands of ships, at the ancient power that had ruled this part of the galaxy since before humans had learned to make fire. I do not know yet, he said honestly. I truly do not know. The docking clamps engaged with a heavy thud. The Horizon's edge had arrived. There was no turning back now. The delegation assembled in the main airlock, would remain on the ship with most of the crew, ready for any emergency. Minyu would lead the diplomatic team with at his side. A small security detail of 6 soldiers accompanied them, though everyone knew the guards were symbolic. If the council wanted them dead, nothing could stop it. Remember why we are here, Minyu told his team. We represent 8 billion humans on Earth and 30 million more across our colonies. Whatever happens in that chamber, we must make them proud. The airlock opened. A long corridor stretched before them, lit by soft golden light. At the far end, a group of aliens waited to escort them to the council chamber. Took a deep breath. This is where history changes, she whispered. They stepped forward into the unknown. The council station was designed to make visitors feel small. The corridors were too wide, the ceilings too high. Every surface was covered with carvings that told stories of ancient wars and conquered peoples. The message was clear. We have always been powerful, and we always will be. The escort led them through a maze of hallways until they reached a massive door. It was carved from a single piece of dark stone, covered with symbols that glowed faintly in the dim light. The Chamber of Stars, one of the escorts announced. You will wait here until you are called. Minyu nodded. The escorts left them standing before the door like children waiting to be punished. Minutes passed, then hours. The humans were given no food, no water, no chairs. They were forced to stand and wait while the council finished other business. They are testing us, said quietly, seeing if we will complain or show weakness. Then we will show them nothing, Minyu replied. They waited in silence. The door remained closed, and somewhere beyond it, the rulers of the galaxy prepared to decide humanity's fate. The great door finally opened after 4 hours of waiting. The sound echoed through the corridor like thunder rolling across mountains. Ambassador Minyu straightened his shoulders and looked at his team. Their faces were tired but determined. They had not complained once during the long wait. Stay calm, he said quietly. No matter what happens in there, stay calm. They walked through the doorway and entered the Chamber of Stars. The room was designed to steal breath and crush hope. A vast dome of transparent crystal rose above them, showing the dying red star that burned at the heart of the Nexus system. Its light filled the chamber with shades of blood and fire. The floor was made of polished black stone that reflected their images like dark water. 12 thrones stood in a semicircle at the far end of the chamber. Each throne was different. Some were made of metal. Others seemed to be carved from living crystal or woven from shadows, and on each throne sat a being of terrible power. These were the rulers of the galaxy. Minyu recognized them from his studies. There was a creature made entirely of crystalline light who was said to be over 10,000 years old. There was the representative, and being with dozens of eyes that never stopped moving. And there, sitting on a throne of black iron, was of the Dominion. There was a reptile standing nearly 3 meters tall. His scales were dark green, almost black, and his eyes burned with cold hatred. A forked tongue flickered from his mouth as he watched the humans approach. The human delegation walked to the center of the chamber. There were no chairs waiting for them. They were expected to stand before the council like criminals awaiting judgment. Thousands of observers filled the galleries above. Species from across the galaxy had come to watch this moment, could feel their eyes pressing down on her like physical weight. Spoke first. Its voice was like wind chimes in a storm, beautiful and terrible at the same time. The species known as humanity has been summoned before this council to answer charges brought by the Dominion. How do you respond to this summons? Minyu stepped forward. His voice was steady. We respond with respect for this council's authority and a desire to resolve this matter peacefully. A sound like laughter came from. It was an ugly sound. Peaceful resolution. You have stolen 3 systems that belong to my people. There is only one peaceful resolution. You will leave. Those systems were empty for 6,000 years, Minyu replied. We found dead worlds and made them live. 30 million humans now call those planets home. That is not our concern, said. His forked tongue flickered again. The law is clear. Reservation claims are sacred. You violated our territory. You will vacate within 1 standard cycle, or we will remove you by force. Watch the other carefully. Some showed no emotion at all. Others seemed almost bored. Only appeared to be truly paying attention, its crystalline form shifting with inner light. Minyu took a breath. With respect, we cannot accept that demand. We cannot tell 30 million people to abandon their homes. We cannot destroy the cities we built, the farms we planted, the children we raised on those worlds. Then you will be destroyed instead, said simply. The Council's judgment is clear. The law supports our claim. The law supports your claim to empty rocks, Minyu said. His voice rose slightly. Not to living worlds, not to human cities, not to human children. The chamber stirred. Several observers leaned forward in their seats. No one spoke to the council this way. No one challenged their rulings so directly. Raised one crystalline limb for silence. Ambassador, you must understand your position. Humanity is young. You have traveled among the stars for only 3 centuries. There have been a spacefaring civilization for 40,000 years. The reservation system exists to protect established species from the chaos of unlimited expansion. It exists to protect the powerful from competition, Minyu replied. The words hung in the air like lightning before thunder. Several shifted on their thrones. Eyes narrowed to slits. Stepped closer to Minyu. She spoke quietly so only he could hear. They have already decided. Look at their body language. This is not a trial, it is a performance. Minyu nodded slightly. He had suspected as much from the beginning. Continued speaking, its tone unchanged. The council has reviewed the evidence. The claim is valid under established law. Humanity must vacate the disputed systems within 1 standard galactic cycle. Failure to comply will result in enforcement action. What enforcement action? Minyu asked. The Dominion has the right to reclaim their territory by any means necessary. The Council will not interfere with lawful enforcement. There it was, the death sentence, delivered in polite words and formal language. The Council was giving the permission to attack humanity, to kill millions of humans, to destroy everything they had built. And they expected humanity to accept it, to bow their heads and walk away in shame, to abandon their people to whatever fate they chose for them. Minyu stood very still for a long moment. The chamber was silent. Everyone was watching, waiting to see how the young species would respond to its judgment. Slowly, Minyu reached into his coat. Several guards around the chamber tensed, but he only a small data crystal. It was no larger than his thumb, made of clear material that caught the red light of the dying star. He walked forward and placed the crystal on the floor before the council's thrones. Then he stepped back. "This crystal contains humanity's formal response to your ruling," he said. His voice filled the chamber clearly. "We reject it." The silence that followed was absolute. Even the seemed frozen in place. "We reject the authority of the council to dispose of our homes," Minyu continued. "We reject the claim of the worlds they never wanted until we made them valuable. We reject a law that protects the lazy and punishes the industrious." Rose from his throne. "You cannot reject the council's ruling. No one has ever." "Then we will be the first," Minyu said. He turned his back on the council. It was the greatest insult possible in galactic diplomacy. To turn your back on someone was to say they were beneath your notice. To do it to the council was to say they did not matter. Several observers gasped. Others whispered urgently to their companions. A few actually stood up, as if they could not believe what they were seeing. "We will not vacate our worlds," Minyu said, addressing the galleries now instead of the thrones. "We will not abandon our people, and we will not return to this chamber to beg for mercy we do not deserve." He looked at his team. "We are leaving." The human delegation began to walk toward the exit. Their footsteps echoed in the stunned silence. No one moved to stop them. No one seemed to know what to do. Finally found his voice. "If you leave this chamber, you will be choosing war." Minyu paused at the doorway. He turned to look at the one last time. "No," he said. "You chose war the moment you decided our homes belonged to you. We are simply choosing not to surrender." He walked through the door and did not look back. Was the last to leave. As she stepped through the doorway, she heard his voice behind her, quiet but clear. "In 17,000 years, no species has ever walked away from this chamber." She stopped. She should have kept walking, but something made her turn. "Perhaps," she said, "it was time someone did." Then she followed her ambassador into the corridor, and the great door closed behind them. In the Chamber of Stars, they sat in shock. The observers buzzed with confused conversation. And somewhere, spreading outward at the speed of light, news of what had happened began to travel across the galaxy. Humanity had walked away from the table. Nothing would ever be the same. The horizon's edge departed from the Nexus station within the hour. Admiral Park ordered maximum speed. He wanted to put as much distance between his ship and the Council as possible before they recovered from their shock. Commander met the diplomatic team at the airlock. She had watched the entire proceeding through a hidden camera in its uniform. Her face showed a mixture of pride and fear. "That was either the bravest thing I have ever seen," she said, "or the most foolish." "Perhaps both," Ambassador Minyu replied. He looked exhausted, but his eyes were clear. "What matters now is what comes next." They gathered in the conference room. The maps of the disputed systems still covered the walls, but now those maps showed something else. They showed battlefields. "They will not wait long," said. He pulled up tactical displays showing the known positions of enemy fleets. "Our intelligence suggests they have at least 300 capital ships. They have been building their navy for exactly this moment. And we have 47 ships in the disputed sectors," added. "Even with reinforcements from Earth, we cannot match their numbers." The room fell quiet. Everyone understood what those numbers meant. If they attacked with their full strength, humanity would be badly outnumbered. But Doctor was not looking at the military displays. She was reviewing communications intercepts from the Nexus station. Her eyes widened as she read. "Something is happening," she said. "The other species are talking, not just about us, about themselves." She put the intercepts on the main screen. Messages flew between delegations in dozens of languages. Many of them mentioned humanity, but they also mentioned other things. Old grudges, ancient complaints, dreams of independence that had been buried for thousands of years. "The collective is discussing their tribute payments to the," explained. "They have been paying protection money for 2,000 years. Some of them are asking why." The Federation is talking about border disputes that were settled against them 50 years ago, added, reading another feed. They are saying maybe those disputes should be reopened. Minu leaned forward. We have done more than refuse the Council. We have shown the galaxy that refusal is possible. Yes, agreed. But showing them is not enough. We must also survive to prove it was worth doing. He turned to Captain Lee, the fleet's tactical officer. Was young for his rank, only 35, but he had a reputation for creative thinking that bordered on genius. He had been silent throughout the meeting, studying the displays with intense focus. Said, "What are our options?" Stood and walked to the main display. He manipulated the controls, and the view changed to show a detailed map of the new system, the first world that would likely attack. "We cannot win a straight fight," he said. "They have too many ships, but we do not need to win a straight fight. We need to make them lose." He drew lines across the map. The fight like they have always fought, in massive formations, overwhelming force. They expect their enemies to either run or stand and die. They have never faced an enemy that does neither. "What do you suggest?" asked. Project Ember pulled up classified files. The room watched as technical specifications appeared on screen. "For 10 years, we have been developing weapons the Council knows nothing about. New shield configurations, energy weapons with 3 times the range of anything the use. And this." He showed them a schematic of a small ship, barely larger than a fighter. It was sleek and fast, with an unusual engine configuration. "Shadow runners," said. "Stealth ships that can appear from nowhere, strike hard, and vanish before the enemy can respond. We have 200 of them hidden in the new system." Studied the specifications. "You believe this will be enough?" "I believe it will be enough to bloody their nose, to make them hesitate. And hesitation is all we need." Pointed to the communication intercepts still showing on screen. "Every day we survive, more species will question the Council. More will ask if they should support more will wonder if they are next." "This is a gamble," Minu said quietly. "If we lose the first battle, everything falls apart." "Then we must not lose," replied. The Horizon's Edge arrived back in human space 4 days later. News of what had happened at the Council had spread across Earth and all the colonies. People were afraid, but they were also angry. The idea that an alien empire could simply take their homes because of ancient paperwork filled them with rage. Volunteers flooded military recruitment centers. Factories that had been building civilian ships switched to military production. Scientists who had been researching medicine and agriculture began working on weapons and shields. Humanity was preparing for war. On the Council station, very different conversations were taking place. Had retreated to the embassy, where he met with his military advisors. Maps of human space covered every wall. "We attack immediately," declared, "before they can prepare, before the other species have time to doubt." His senior admiral, a veteran named, studied the maps carefully. "The humans have surprised us before. Our intelligence on their military capabilities is limited." "They are children," snapped. 300 years among the stars. What could they possibly have developed that would threaten us?" Did not argue. He had learned long ago that arguing with politicians led nowhere good, but he made a private note to proceed more carefully than is wished. Meanwhile, in a quiet corner of the station, met with representatives of several smaller species. The crystalline being moved slowly, as befitted its great age. But its mind was as sharp as it had been 10,000 years ago. "You have all seen what the humans did," said. "You have all heard what they said." The representative clicked its mandibles nervously. "They challenged the Council. They will be destroyed." "Perhaps," acknowledged, "but perhaps not. The universe is full of surprises." Another delegate from a species called the spoke carefully. "Some of us have wondered whether the Council serves all species equally, whether the old laws truly protect everyone or only those who wrote them." Its crystalline form pulsed with inner light. Those are dangerous questions. The humans asked dangerous questions, the replied, and they are still alive. For now. Yes, for now, the paused. But if they survive what comes next, I suspect they will not be alone in asking such questions. Consider this. In 17,000 years of ruling the galaxy, the Council had faced many challenges, rebellions, wars, natural disasters that threatened entire civilizations. They had survived all of it. But they had never faced a species quite like humanity, a species that did not know enough to be afraid, a species that built cities on dead worlds and made them live, a species that walked away from the most powerful body in the galaxy and dared them to do something about it. Perhaps thought the galaxy was about to change. Or perhaps the humans would simply die, like so many others before them. Either way, the waiting was over. Across the stars, the Armada began to move. 300 warships, their hulls black with centuries of conquest, formed into perfect formation. They set course for human space. And on new, 30 million people looked up at the stars and wondered what was coming. They would not have to wonder for long. The Armada dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the new system. 300 warships spread across the darkness of space like a curtain of death. Each ship was massive, covered in weapons and armor that had crushed dozens of species over thousands of years. Admiral stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominion's Wrath. He studied the tactical displays with cold, professional interest. The human defenders were exactly where his scouts had reported. 47 ships waited near the system's gas giant, using its gravity well to anchor their formation. They are outnumbered more than 6 to 1, his tactical officer reported. Their largest ship is half the size of our smallest cruiser. Do not underestimate them, said. The humans have already surprised us once. He opened a communication channel that would reach the human fleet. His voice was calm and formal. Human vessels, this is Admiral of the Dominion. You are occupying space that belongs to my people. You have 1 hour to begin evacuation procedures. If you refuse, we will remove you by force. The response came almost immediately. Admiral Park's face appeared on the screen. He looked tired but determined. His voice was steady. Admiral, this is Admiral Park of the Human Defense Force. These are our worlds. Our people live here. We will not leave. Had expected this answer. Then you choose death for yourself and your species. No, replied. We choose to fight for what is ours. There is a difference. The channel closed, turned to his officers. All ships advance to attack formation. We end this quickly. The Armada began to move. 300 ships in perfect formation, a wall of metal and fire that had never known defeat. They crossed the system toward the human position, weapons charging, shields humming with power. On the bridge of the horizon's edge, Commander watched the enemy approach. Her hands moved steadily across the tactical controls, but her heart was beating fast. They are maintaining standard formation, she reported, just like we predicted. Nodded, signal all ships, execute Ember Protocol on my command. Captain Lee's voice came over the communication system. He was already in his fighter, leading the attack wing that would strike the first blow. Shadow runners are in position, Admiral, ready on your order. Wait for them to enter the engagement zone, said. Let them think they know what they are facing. The fleet continued its advance. The distance between the two forces shrank rapidly, 100,000 kilometers, 50,000, 20,000. They are entering optimal weapons range, reported. Now, said quietly. What happened next would become legend. 200 shadow runners appeared from nowhere. The stealth ships had been hiding in the shadow of the gas giant, completely invisible to sensors. They struck the enemy formation like knives through paper. They had never faced weapons like Project Ember. Human energy beams cut through their armor as if it were cloth. Ships that had survived 1,000 battles exploded in seconds. The perfect formation dissolved into chaos as captains tried to respond to attacks they could not see coming. Led his squadron directly at the command ships. His fighter twisted and spun through enemy fire, too fast and too small to hit. "Focus on their communications," he shouted to his pilots. "Blind them." The Shadow Runners targeted relay ships and command vessels. Within minutes, the fleet was struggling to coordinate. Ships bumped into each other. Weapons fire went wild. The wall of death had become a confused mass of panicking crews. But they were not weak. They were veterans of countless wars. Even in chaos, they fought back. "We are taking hits," reported. 3 ships damaged, 1 destroyed. "Press the attack," ordered. "They are wavering." The main human fleet engaged now. 47 ships against nearly 300. It should have been suicide. But human weapons had 3 times the range of guns. They could strike from distances the enemy could not answer. The battle raged for hours. The gas giants' rings lit up with explosions. Debris scattered across thousands of kilometers. Both sides took losses, but they were losing more. Watched his tactical display with growing horror. 73 of his ships were destroyed. Another 40 were too damaged to fight. His perfect armada was being torn apart by a force 1/6 its size. "How is this possible?" his tactical officer stammered. "Their ships are smaller, their species is younger, how?" "Because they had nothing to lose," said quietly. He understood now. They had fought to take. The humans were fighting to keep. There was a difference. He made a decision that would haunt him forever. "All ships fall back. Retreat to the system's edge. We will regroup and reassess." The fleet began to withdraw. Ships that had never run from battle turned and fled. The humans pursued for a short distance, then stopped. They were too smart to chase a wounded enemy into a trap. On the horizon's edge, the bridge crew watched the retreat in stunned silence. They had expected to fight. They had expected to die. They had not expected to win. "They are running," said. Her voice was barely a whisper. Allowed himself a small smile. "For now. They will be back with more ships, but today we survived." Doctor had been monitoring communications throughout the battle. Now she looked up with wide eyes. "Admiral, you need to see this." She put her intercepts on the main screen. Messages were flooding across every channel in the galaxy. News of the battle was spreading faster than light. Every species with a communication array was watching, talking, wondering. The humans had won. Not just won, they had devastated our armada. They had done what no species had done in 10,000 years. They had made the run. "Send a message," Minyu said. He had remained on the ship during the battle, but now he stepped forward. Broadcasted on every frequency, in every language. His fingers moved across her console. "Ready, Ambassador." Minyu spoke clearly, knowing that billions of beings across the galaxy would hear his words. "This is Ambassador Minyu of humanity. Today, the Dominion attacked our world. They came with 300 ships to take our homes, our cities, our families. We sent them back with fewer than half that number." He paused, letting the weight of those words settle. "We did not seek this war. We do not wish to continue it, but we will defend our people against anyone who threatens them. The Council has ruled that our worlds belong to others. We reject that ruling. We will always reject that ruling." Another pause. This was the important part. "To all species watching, you do not have to live in fear. You do not have to bow to those who would take from you. The old powers are not invincible. They can be beaten. They can be driven back. All it takes is the courage to stand." He nodded at who ended the transmission. Across the galaxy, on 100 worlds, the message was heard. In council chambers and common houses, in military bases and refugee camps, beings of every shape and size listened to the words of a species they had dismissed as young and foolish. And they began to think dangerous thoughts. On the Nexus station, received the news of the battle in its private chambers. For a long moment, the crystalline being sat motionless, light pulsing slowly through its ancient form. Then it rose and began preparing for a journey. The galaxy was changing, and intended to be ready for what came next. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything the ancient chamber had seen in 17,000 years. All 12 were present. The galleries above were packed with observers from every species that could reach the Nexus station in time. And for the first time anyone could remember, the mood in the chamber was not confident superiority. It was fear. Stood before his throne, scales flushed dark with rage. This cannot stand. The humans have defeated our fleet through trickery and deception. We must assemble a combined force from all council species. We must crush them before this infection spreads. Before what spreads? The calm voice belonged to, who had returned from its private journey only hours before. The crystalline being moved slowly across the chamber floor. Before others realize they can resist, I believe it is already too late for that. Gestured and holographic displays appeared throughout the chamber. They showed reports from across the Orion Arm. The collective had announced it would no longer pay tribute to the 3 systems in the outer reaches had declared independence from council oversight. A dozen species had opened diplomatic communications with Earth. In the week since the battle, 17 governments have made formal statements questioning council authority, continued. Another 43 have made informal inquiries. The humans did not just defeat your fleet, they showed the galaxy that your fleet could be defeated. Hissed with fury. Then we crush them all. We have ruled this galaxy for 17,000 years. We will not be threatened by a few rebellious children. And how do you propose we do that? Another spoke, a being of living shadow called the Nameless One. Our fleets are powerful, but they cannot be everywhere at once. If we commit to destroying humanity, who will keep order in the outer reaches? If we send ships to suppress what prevents the from acting? We have maintained control through fear and tradition. The humans have damaged both. The chamber fell into uneasy murmuring. They looked at each other with expressions that ranged from anger to worry to something that might have been calculation. Far away, on Earth, Ambassador Minu received a stream of messages that would have been unthinkable a month before. Alien diplomats were asking for meetings, trade negotiations, military discussions. Species that had ignored humanity for 3 centuries now wanted to talk. He sat in his office in the capital, reviewing the messages with Dr. They want a mutual defense agreement, he said. They are offering technology exchange. Even they are asking about establishing formal relations. Nodded. They see us as proof that the council can be, but they are also being careful. No one wants to commit until they see what happens next. What happens next depends on the Minu pulled up military reports. They are rebuilding their fleet, calling in ships from across their territory. In 3 months, they will have enough strength to attack again. Can we stop them a second time? I do not know, is working on new tactics, new weapons, but they will not make the same mistakes twice. They will study our methods and adapt. Considered this. Then we need allies, real allies, not just species asking questions. We need them to commit. That requires them to believe we can win, Minu said. And right now, they are not sure. One victory proves nothing except that we got lucky. Then we must prove it was not luck. The weeks that followed were filled with frantic activity on both sides. They stripped their outer territories of ships, assembling the largest fleet they had gathered in 1,000 years. Human factories worked around the clock, producing more shadow runners, more weapons, more shields. Both sides prepared for a conflict that would determine the future of the galaxy. But something else was happening too, something quieter but perhaps more important. On a small world in the outer reaches, a group of species that had chafed under council rule for centuries held a secret meeting. Representatives from the, and a dozen others gathered in a hidden chamber beneath an ancient mountain. "The humans cannot defeat thee alone," the representative said, "but they do not have to, if we stand with them." "We would be declaring war on the council," a delegate interrupted. "Suicide. Perhaps it is the only way to survive." The speaker was old, its scales faded with age, but its eyes were bright. "For centuries we have watched the council grow stronger while we grew weaker. We have paid tribute. We have obeyed laws written to benefit others. We have told ourselves that this was the price of peace. But what peace? Peace for them, fear for us." The chamber was silent for a long moment. "The humans showed us something important," the continued. "Not that the council can be defeated in battle, though that is significant. They showed us that someone can say no. Someone can walk away from the table. Someone can choose dignity over survival." It paused. "Perhaps it is time we made the same choice." 3 days later, a message arrived at the human military command on Earth. Commander read it first, then called Admiral Park to the communications center. "It is from something called the Free Species Coalition," she said. "They say they represent 32 governments in the outer reaches. They are offering a military alliance against thee and the Council." Read the message carefully. It listed ship numbers, weapons capabilities, strategic positions. The coalition was not as powerful as but combined with human forces, it would change the equation significantly. "Can we trust them?" he asked. "I do not know," admitted. "But I know that we cannot defeat thee alone, and I know that these species have everything to lose if we fail. That makes them motivated allies." Made his decision. "Contact Ambassador Minu. Tell him to prepare for visitors. We are about to make some new friends." The alliance was formalized within a week. Ships from 32 species began moving toward human space, joining the defensive fleet that waited for the attack. For the first time in galactic history, a coalition had formed specifically to oppose the Council's will. On the Nexus station, observed these developments with ancient patience. The crystalline being had seen civilizations rise and fall. It had watched empires crumble and new powers emerge. It knew that what was happening now was not just a military conflict. It was the end of an era. The Council had ruled through the belief that it could not be challenged. That belief was now broken. Even if the destroyed humanity, even if the coalition was scattered and its members punished, the idea would remain. The knowledge that resistance was possible. Some ideas once born could never be killed. Convened a private meeting with 3 other ancient beings who remembered times before the Council had become what it was. They spoke for hours in languages that had been old when humans were still living in caves. When they emerged, they announced that they would not support military action against humanity. They called instead for negotiation, for compromise, for a new approach to governing the galaxy. Was furious, but without unanimous council support, they could not claim to be acting with full galactic authority. Their war would be their own, not the council's. The final battle, when it came, was less a military engagement than a political statement. The combined human and coalition fleet met the armada in open space. Both sides were roughly equal in strength. Both sides knew that the real victory would not be won through weapons alone. It was won when, after hours of standoff, the fleet received a message from their own government. The Dominion Council had voted to withdraw the claim on human space. The cost of continuing the war in ships, in resources, in political standing, was too high. Commanding the fleet, read the message with a mixture of relief and shame. He had known for weeks that this war was unwinnable. The humans had not just beaten them in battle. They had beaten them in spirit. They had shown that victory came not from size or age or tradition, but from the willingness to fight for what mattered. He ordered his fleet to withdraw. No shots were fired that day. The galaxy watched in stunned silence as the warships turned and left. The humans and their allies remained in formation, united in a way that would have been impossible just months before. On the bridge of the horizon's edge, Admiral Park stood with Commander, Ambassador Minyu, Doctor, and Captain Lee. They watched the enemy fleet disappear into the darkness between stars. "Is it over?" asked quietly. "This part is over," Minyu replied. "But nothing will ever be the same. The Council is weakened. New alliances are forming. Species that lived in fear are beginning to hope." Smiled slightly. "We did not just win a war, we changed the galaxy." Laughed, a rare sound from the serious tactical officer. "And to think it all started because we refused to give up a few planets." "No," said. His voice was thoughtful, almost gentle. "It started because we refused to give up on ourselves, because we believed our homes were worth fighting for and our people deserved to be free." He looked out at the stars, millions of points of light, each one a sun with worlds that might hold life, hope, dreams of the future. "That is what we showed the galaxy," he said. "Not that we could fight, but that we would never stop." In the years that followed, historians would write about the day humanity walked away from negotiations. They would analyze the battles and the politics, the speeches and the alliances. They would debate whether the humans had been brave or foolish, visionary or lucky. But the beings who lived through it knew the truth. They had witnessed the moment when the galaxy stopped being ruled by fear, when the silence of submission was broken by a single word. No. And in that single word, spoken by a young species that refused to know its place, the universe had begun to change. The stars burned on as they always had. But now, for the first time in 17,000 years, they burned with the light of possibility. And humanity, strange, stubborn, impossible humanity, walked among them as equals at last.